Hey guys, here we are. One of the front runners in the voting for the survey I put out recently, a few days ago, has been the soap that is Lucien, a French soap. And it did well for me in the beginning a few years ago. And then I had one kind of a dud shave with it. And then I tried it again. And it did really well. I'm thinking that dud was just maybe a one-off. I mean, look at these cool tins. I mean, this is a heavy-duty stainless steel tin. It's pricey. The size of this particular container is 200 grams, and so that is more. As you can see, 7 ounces. Even a Stirling is almost 6 ounces, and that's large, right? So it is an expensive soap usually, but you do get more for your money. So let's just examine the base today. This is Oud Santal. I do like the scent on this when I can smell it, and that's what the voting is for, in case you don't know. I've got COVID and been a little tired today, but not too bad. I'm about a week out, and I was vaccinated, and I think that has been very important for me. The and so I am looking forward to trying it out. I am going to keep on with this carbon shaving razor. It's a titanium, and so it's just light as a feather. It's my a prize for my Lather Games experience this year in 2021. I have the mild base plate with it. And this is kind of looking like a skeleton one, right? Pretty cool, huh? And let's go ahead and put the blade in it. Now, yesterday I used this same razor with a feather blade, and it was a somewhat new feather. It only had 3 uses on it prior to the shave. I chose today the Astra Platinum because the feather sometimes gives me an edgy shave that maybe can pick up some irritation sometimes, depending on the razor. It definitely requires monitoring and care. Oh, this is one of the new Astras that has the etching instead of the ink printing. I haven't done a real full test on these. I have plenty that don't have the etching. We'll have to see if there's a difference. The printing ones are the ones that I've been using for so long, and they just do well for me in so many razors. They're inexpensive, but they just do really, really well. So instead of the feather, because the feather did leave me with a little bit of irritation at the end of the shave. Not so much that I wouldn't shave with it if I had it to shave with, if it was my only thing, but enough to make me perhaps try some other blades. Okay, the feather for me is kind of an edgy blade that can be a little harsh sometimes, and so the Astra is one that's usually kinder to me when I put it in the same razor. And so let's just see if that holds true again. I'm going to try that one out today. And in a similar vein, this Astra, I believe I told you, it's had 2 uses. And something I'm bringing to you that's new new to me, is this. This is a brown synthetic knot, and I just spent several minutes looking online. Yaki has it, and they just call it the brown synthetic. There are some lighter colored hairs mixed in here too, so it's kind of a different colors of light brown. It's not a solid dark brown. There is a brown knot out there that's very solid and then has white tips, and obviously this is not that knot. And so maybe that's what they call it. Maggard seems to have this knot, and they just call it the brown synthetic, and Yaki has it as well. Knowing that it was a synthetic, if you know me, synthetics usually don't work very well for me. They kind of shove my skin around in certain times during the shave, and so the handle's really why I bought this knot. Let me, yeah, there we go. You can see it a little better. Just some neat colors, and it was a good price, and it looked pretty ergonomic, and it's made by WildWest, and they do a really good job with the quality of their work. And so larger handles like these or sometimes hard to find. So when a good deal pops up on one, I went in and pulled the trigger. Somebody did mount their own knot in here, and you can see the curve of the bristles, right? So I think what's happened here is this brush was either stored or shipped and stored at a time when it got very, very hot. And so, I've had this happen before, where or, it could be been like this and it sagged, or it could have been suspended between 2 points like that when it was hot. That's probably more likely what happened, but I don't think it's going to interfere with the quality of the shave, because once you get lather all up in this thing, they're going to move every which way. It just may not look very nice while it's dry. Some people that's important. Maybe that's why it was such a good deal. If I don't like this knot, then my plan was always just to yank the knot out, grind it out, whatever I need to do, and then put my own knot in this very cool looking handle. So that is still the backup plan, just in case the brown doesn't work out for me. And I still can't smell this, but I mean, this is a heavy duty metal container here. They do have different containers out. I've been looking, and so not all of them are this way for this brand. You can see it's kind of mottled, and it's not quite uniform, and that's okay, because it's maybe not supposed to be. So let me dig in here. It's a little bit on the firm side. It's not an easy cream. I've got a 1/4 inch measuring spoon here, and so I can't remember how much of this product I'm going to need to use, and so let's just kind of go overboard a little bit. This one had a good bit of demand for the voting, and for a while there it was leading, and then at the last minute, right before I chose my soap for last night, DR Harris jumped ahead, and so that's why I used DR Harris first. And so yeah, we've almost got a half a teaspoon here. You can see how lumpy that is. So I may have just tons of lather. We'll just have to see. But why not? I'll just use this much. Press it into the bottom of the bowl. You can even feel it's a little bit gritty. Not a hard gritty, but you can feel that there are just, it's a mixture of different ingredients and materials and parts. I'm not saying that's bad. That's just the way it is. It almost feels natural, it almost, feels like I have something a little bit more authentic, because it's not just all one texture. But that could be a feeling that is born out of ignorance and not one. But that's, when I describe to you those feelings, that's usually it's just to get the message across. All right, so we spread it around in the bowl. Very nice. And let me get my face wet. All right, got my face wet, and I got the brush wet. As in the case with many synthetics, you don't really need to soak it like you do animal hair brushes. Just wring it under the water and work it really well to get some water up in there. I'm going to shake a lot of it out. And so I'm curious, because I've never used this brown synthetic before, if we're going to end up with the same feel as that common family of synthetics, the cashmere, Sinbad, Timberwolf. And there was one I evaluated recently. Oh yeah, the 2-bed. No, I thought the 2-bed might be a different makeup. I've been wondering about those other ones that I mentioned, the cashmere, Plasan type, Sinbad, Timberwolf. They all kind of feel like the same fibers, just painted different colors, right? And so it made me wonder, because they make a very nice lather. I just don't like the way they feel on my face. And so I was just wondering if, in fact, my guess is true, that maybe they are the same fibers, just painted differently. So are we going to discover that this is in that same family, and this is just the brown, the brown version? We shall see. Tilt you down. I do have my 40 milliliters here that will just be able to track how much water we end up adding. I did do a little experiment a week ago or so where I saw that yes, synthetic did seem to, at first impression, generate a creamier lather. Let's see if that's true as well. Now already we've got some early lather coming up, and I still see plenty on the bottom of the bowl. So I'm probably going to end up with a good bit of lather on my hands here. The darker colored knots, and I've seen this with my horsehair as well, which is black. It's a funny feeling to look at the lather on it and see the darkness coming through. It's different, very different. The badger brushes and the boar brushes, of course, have those light colored bristles, and so they are very compatible with a very light lather color. The lather almost looks dirty with the brown synthetic fibers coming through. I habitually am still smelling soap tubs whenever I pull the caps off. It's just kind of habit. Like I said, this is an expensive soap, and it may be one of those cases where there is such a large selection of soaps that we can choose from. You know, is this one really worth it to pay some more money? Because it performs, you know, a third better, you know, 133% better. Probably not, but if they have some scents that you like, that sort of thing, oh yeah, that lather's looking pretty good. Yeah, we've got some elasticity there. I've added a good bit of water. It's kind of nice to have a sink. I can always have clean fingers if I want. So that makes it about 25 milliliters added. And this brown knot, is available at Maggard's for about $8. So it's a very affordable knot if you like the look of it, if it matches a handle that you have in mind, and if you like synthetics, it's going to be pretty cheap, user-friendly in terms of easy to make lather, that sort of thing, easy to clean. All right, well, this lather looks terrific visually, and there we go as we look at the kind of the elasticity there. Let's just go ahead and use it now. We definitely have tons of it. All right. Just 24 hours worth of growth here, so normal amount. Get some lather inside the brush there by pressing down into it. See how things go. Most of those synthetic brushes always do very well with this kind of painting stroke. The circular strokes they often do well in. this stroke right here, if I pull back so that the tips are able to kind of flop, it does shove me around just a little bit, but it's a lot less than that 2-bed knot was doing. But this is also a nice creamy lather, so we'll see if it's too dry. If it starts to feel pasty, then the lather could be helping the synth brush to kind of cheat. But maybe this is different. Maybe this is a different knot. Maybe it doesn't quite have the same amount of backbone. Okay, now I'm seeing the texture here, and I think maybe I should add a little bit more water. See the ripples and the texture. It needs to be a little smoother for me to know I've added enough water. It will, of course, vary per soap base, but let's just go ahead and add some water here. Get rid of some of this excess lather as we add water. If we do have kind of a concentrate amount of soap on the brush, then you'll often find that starts to generate more lather. And where does that lather go? It can't fit anymore on the brush, and it jumps off, flies around the bathroom. First glance, it seems like this doesn't quite have the same amount of backbone, which is very refreshing. I wish it had a more specific name. You know, there is one called the Mew brown knot that Yaki has, and it does not seem to be the same as that one. The Mother Lode is brown, but it has it's a more solid color brown, and it has white tips. So it's easy to tell the difference. Yeah, see, I told you I used a lot of soap. I used more than a quarter teaspoon, and I think we're seeing what happens when you do that with this soap base. I didn't need that much soap. Now, there was one entry on one website that had a brown synthetic knot called the pony knot. I didn't spend a lot of time to see if it was this exact one, but it did look similar. But what you'll find a lot of times is a lot of retailers, they don't really kind of want to give away the fact that they are, or make it easy for you to know that they're just buying their knots from Yaki or somebody like that. And it's all the same knots. You know, Magger's going to get the same one that they can. And so instead of calling it the same thing Yaki calls theirs, they give it a different name. And that makes you think you've got something special instead of them just being a reseller. Now, I personally would just rather them suck it up and tell us what the Yaki name is, so that, you know, people don't go around buying a bunch of brushes that are all the same, you know. Oh, try the Fox brush from thus and such retailer, and, you know, oh no, I want to try the pony brush from this other retailer, and oh, I'm going to try the hound brush from this other one, and they're all the same brown synthetic knot, right? I know there's one company that likes to, you know, give them thematic names. You know, if they're a pirate company, then they might call their knots, you know, different pirate names or whatever. All right, I think this is pretty nice. It probably still could use a little bit more water, but I'm just done adding water. It's a real chore with face lathering and adding water and all that. I don't like it. at this point. All right. So, Mr. Carbon with a mild base plate. We've changed from a more touchy blade that's a little bit more finicky and can cut maybe when it's not supposed to one that's a little bit more friendly. So you could say maybe not as sharp, but if it cuts really well under more control, then maybe it's just as sharp. And just, it's really hard to find words to describe blades like that, right? Sometimes people obviously use words like smooth. Well, that's pretty easy to be objective about. You know, does it have a rough feel? Or does it move smoothly? Well, that's pretty cool. But sharp. See, it could be sharper. A feather could be sharper than something else. But what we're really focused in, how well does it cut your hairs? And so what if it's a sharper blade, but because the angle that it's in the razor and different things like that, it doesn't actually end up cutting you as closely? Then is it as sharp? See? And so I think that's kind of where the confusion lies. What's the word? Ambiguity, perhaps? Now, this is a very light razor, and so I do feel like I have to kind of pull it through the hairs a little bit instead of kind of letting the weight do the work. I do definitely favor the mild base plate over the plus that I have. I just felt a little twinge right here going over an area that maybe had a cut yesterday or something. I didn't have any bleeders yesterday, but I did generate tenderness in a couple of spots. This does not feel all that slick. So I'm thinking that maybe, yeah, it needs more water. This is more pasty. Definitely needs more water. We'll try that on the. I mean, it's serviceable. It's protecting somewhat. But we'll add more water on the next go round. Just continuing that light touch. So let's add some more water here. And from what I can tell, it might need a good bit. So total right now is quite a lot. 34 milliliters total added so far. So let's combine that and just see if we can get a slicker lather. Didn't feel quite as protected on that first one, and the razor definitely didn't feel fast. There wasn't quite as much glide. Now, I guarantee you there's some guys that's their preference. That hydration level that you just saw might be what they go for, and that's just fine. But I like to try to get something a little wetter, and usually I'm rewarded with something that's slicker. All right, let's take a look here. Are we still picking up any soap on the bottom? Still tons of lather here. Oh, look, it is affected by gravity. See, it's sliding. I want to add some more water, even more than this. If you ever wonder if your lather's too dry, after you finish, or let's not say too dry, if your lather could take some more water, because I mean obviously you can put it wherever you want it, right? But if it could take some more water, what I like to do is after you do a pass with a lather that you think, I wonder if this is too dry. After you do the pass, get your hands a little wet and kind of rub them on your face, and then feel what happens to the soap residue on your face. Does it wake up? Does it get slicker? Do you all of a sudden realize, wait a minute, I'd like to be shaving with this surface instead of what I had before? Well, in that case, add some more water to your lather and see if you like it better. Yeah, we've got tons. I did not need to scoop that much soap. Look at all this. And I've already done one pass of lather. All right, let's try this out now. So far, this is not really shoving my skin around very much. It does seem to be made slippery by the lather, so the hairs are moving out of the way instead of shoving me around. That's pretty cool. That probably means we have a different bristle material, would be my guess. I don't think this one looks any different in terms of like lofted higher or different according to the width, you know, that sort of thing. I don't think it's some magic combination. All right, cross grain now. So it's going to sound a little better right now with the majority of stubble already taken down. It's not going to have quite as much chatter. Doesn't feel super fast. It's yeah, it could be faster. It's like sometimes I'll get a soap base that's got a lot of butters and oils, and those actually end up slowing down the razor. And so what that could mean is it can take even more water, or maybe it means this lather's topping out. I'll bet it can take more water. The right level of hydration would have been easier to achieve if I would have backed off of the soap. Clearly I loaded about twice as much as I needed to, maybe even more than that. I'm going to add the rest of the water. This is the first time I think that I've used all 40 milliliters. We're going to load it up again. And let's just really give it some water here. I do feel some tenderness because the still got some aggression to it. And then the drag there, not significant, but it could have come into play. Definitely going to try this in a way that Astra is kind of acting like the feather. It's not being all that different at this time. All right, let's show you guys what we're dealing with here. See it moving. There's some kind of big bubbles that have, made their way into it. Big-ish. Hopefully you can see those. All right, let's try again, but let me get my rinse on. All right. As this lather takes on more water, you can definitely see it's getting a little bit more translucent. I'm also going to be able to feel the brush a little bit more, but it's still doing pretty good. Man, See, that is why, my friends, I keep trying synthetics, even though many of them have failed me, because you never know what you're going to discover. All right. Yeah, so that lather here is obviously more hydrated than what we've had before. Let's see what happens. That's better. I can just feel the razor move more easily across my skin. And that's not just because there's less hair. The metal, I could feel the metal just not being quite so fluid earlier. So it's definitely a soap that you can get really well hydrated. I don't need to, usually, I don't need to do too much down here special when I've got a nice, and I've got kind of an aggressive razor like this. I mean, this is the mild plate, and I don't consider this a mild shave. If I were to compare maybe a, you know what it is? It's a mild, it's like using a mild setting, but the blade just has some flex to it, and so there's that chatter that you hear. It feels more like maybe a 5 or a 6 on a vintage Gillette type aggression feel, but different because it's got more chatter than the vintage one would have. You know, I kind of expected it to lock down on the blade pretty well because it seems to maybe contact it in the center here, not right here obviously because that's where those triangle sections are, but in the center and on the corners I thought it might have enough contact because the Razor Rod Game Changer kind of does that, but I guess in reality it doesn't really grip the blade all that closely. And yeah, I have this tender feeling throughout, mainly my neck area because that's the more sensitive area here. I'm going to check the closeness. This seems to be another case of, because of the tenderness that it's generating in my neck area, I'm not getting as close of a shave because I'm keeping it very light. I don't want to go over certain areas in the ways that I might normally do it because I can feel that tenderness build up. Now it's a decent shave, but there are more mild razors that give me a closer shave because I'm able to work an area more. A few extra strokes, a little bit better buffing, and then bam, I've got a closer shave. Wow, the mild plate to me does not, at least with a feather and an Astra, is not really coming across as a mild experience for me. Now, a lot of people like these carbon razors, and so it may just be me, different than other people. I'm here visiting family over the weekend, and since they are going to smell me, I'm going to use Mountain Man, which is Creed's Silver Mountain Water. I won't be able to smell it because of my COVID, but they will, perhaps. WSP also has this same scent, and they call it Matterhorn. But in terms of the shaving soap, I would buy the Stirling instead because you get more product and its performance is pretty much the same. And it's cheaper for more product if you go the Stirling route. But WSP does have a few scents that Stirling doesn't, so there is a reason to shop WSP soaps and stuff. All right. But the Creed Silver Mountain Water is a very popular one. And does anybody else make it? WSP and Stirling? Maybe one other group does. But that's all I can think of right now. I ended up using 54 milliliters of water, almost half a teaspoon of soap, and I still have like 4 or 5 passes of lather still. How about that? Well, hey, I hope this shave helps you guys out. Take care now. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves.